But we move on now and we head to Africa as displaced Sudanese fleeing Al-Fashir's violence are describing a dire situation. As per reports, residents face daily shelling from the rapid support forces while hunger is escalating. Many are starving, with children and adults malnourished. Food supplies have been blocked and the cost of smuggled goods is skyrocketing. As the death tolls rise, cemeteries grow larger. Meanwhile, reports suggest that aid convoys are attacked, leaving thousands with little hope. The besieged city of Al-Fashir is witnessing suffering as the conflict in Sudan's Darfur region intensifies, pushing more families to the brink. Let's listen in to what some displaced Sudanese people have had to say.
لهجنا طويلة بعد ما لهجنا طويلة من الزمن ده أدانا الحاجات البسيط لكن هو برضه ما كافي حاجة ما كافي لنا ده هو هسه أمطار كثير وجاي مرض الكورونا نحاولوا يعملوا لنا طريقة عشان يجيبوا لنا أدوية ولا حاجة زي ده المطر ده والله عندنا بيوت لكن ما عندنا بيوت للمطر ده ما عندنا مشمعات نقول لما مطر يجيب بعد ده شوف هذا ينوموا ما في مشمعات وما في قطاعات وخريف جاية ما عندنا نواعيس برضه ما عندنا قطاعات
هنا تاني رجعنا حتتنا الشجرة هناك عشان نتخارج ونجي طويلة وتاني برضه هاجمونا في شجرة هناك برضو تعبونا شديد لا من جو لقونا قاعدين كده يعني يقول لنا وين الأسلحة وين الرجال وانتوا فلنجيات ولو لقوا زول يعني ممكن عادي عنده تليفون يشيلوا منه ولا عنده قروش يشيلوا منك ولا عندك يعني حمار ولا حاجة زي ده سمح برضو يشيلوا منك.
Well, joining us to discuss this extremely difficult situation, Osanyin Taiwo, a policy and strategic implementation expert who joins us from Abuja in Nigeria. Thank you ever so much, Osanyin. Could you please detail some of the difficulties surrounding this situation and what's really needed now to look at a humanitarian situation, not just on the ground, but of course across the country?
Thank you very much for having me. As we speak currently, it's actually very unfortunate that the current situation in Sudan, most especially in Al-Fashir, Darfur region, whereby we've asked over 500,000 civilians who are currently trapped with access to lack of food, water, and even medical care. And this is such a very venomous humanitarian situation that we face in this region in Africa today. Having stated that, it's also very sad that this situation has begun to increase as we have mass graves increasing, and there is no need for there is no closure in terms of ceasefire or any sign of peace anywhere around this region. Having said that, it's actually very important to state emphatically that for the Sudanese crisis to end, there's a need for an immediate ceasefire with protection of civilians. And this is very critical because if we do not deal with this immediately, this may actually escalate to other parts of the Sudanese region and also even some parts of Africa. Also, it's important to state categorically that there's a need for immediate humanitarian access. And this is because, as you just reported right now, you can see where citizens have lack of access to basic human needs. Water is more like luxury. Food is a luxury right now in this region, and this can no longer take effect. And also, it's also very critical to state emphatically that it is time for the African region to come up with a necessary diplomatic pressure for accountability in this region and for the leaders in Sudan. And I think I will stop there and I'll wait your next question.
Osanyin, we don't have too much longer left, but you're calling the situation, of course, devastating and calling for action. Where does that come from?
Well, it's necessary for both parties. I'm talking about both the RFS and the leaders of Sudanese group to come up with a consensus. There's a need for a consensus. There's a need to show this sword and talk about peace. There's a need to sit on the round table for peace. And then if this is very difficult for any of these parties, then it is time for the international organizations like the African Union and African region, that is the African Union, to put necessary diplomatic pressure and accountability on them. And it's not actually very necessary that at the way we stand right now, there's a need for a long-term political dialogue in Sudan. This is not a choice, but this is of a necessity, and this has to be done like almost immediately.
Asanya and Taiwo, thank you ever so much for your insights and comments. Of course, the situation in Sudan is one we will continue to monitor here on NewsX World. We move on now, though, as Trump